Welcome everybody. Well done. You passed the first test. You banged us. Fantastic. Hopefully most of you have found a workbook on your chairs. Anybody not got a workbook? You haven't got a workbook? Yep. There's one and there's another one. This is a brand new addition to our training resources. We've got now 7 different training programs that we run in this area of understanding and working with children and young people with additional needs. So this one, looking a bit more at ADHD, is brand new, and so you get to see it first, which is great, and get a copy of the workbook. Now, because we've only got, just under an hour now, we're covering about half of what the full programme would be. But the full programme, all the slides are in the workbook, which is yours to keep, so you can have that to take away with you. But just as an introduction, my name's Mark. I look after this area of work at Urban Saints. Hands up if you've heard of Urban Saints. Yeah, most of you have heard of us. We're a national Christian children's and youth work organisation. So we're going to be having a look this morning at this topic of understanding and working with and creating accessibility for and supporting children and young people with ADHD. Hands up if you're working with a child or young person with ADHD. Yeah, most of it. I guess that's why you're here. So yeah, hopefully you're going to find this session a really helpful one as we work through it today. We've only got a little tiny bit of screen space there, and the audio is going to be my laptop. So there is a video clip, and I really want us to see it because it's actually a bunch of kids with ADHD talking about ADHD, and I think that's a really important thing for us to hear. So when we get to that point, I'll warn you to try and sort of listen as closely as you can, but the video's also got captions, so hopefully one way or the other you'll be able to pick up what they're saying. But we're working with what tech we've got. And, so let's dive on in. As we dive on in, I'm going to be passing around various things for you to have a look at as we go through. I'm going to start off with my Mood Octopus. Any of you seen the Mood Octopus? Yeah, 1 or 2 of you have seen the Mood Octopus. Hello, come on in. Have a workbook. Okay, that's fine. I'll sit on there. Mood Octopus is a great way of helping a child or young person that might struggle to tell us how they're feeling to share that information with us. My Mood Octopus is smiling at the moment. Hopefully all of your inner Mood Octopuses are smiling as well. If I turn it inside out, it's a bit sad and grumpy. Simple tool, but really effective, and a great way of children and young people sharing with us how they're feeling. So have a look at Mood Octopus as it comes round. What are we going to be covering in this next 55 minutes or so? Well, we're going to have a quick look at what ADHD is for anybody that doesn't really fully grasp all the details of ADHD. We'll dip into that a little bit. Then we're going to start to look at the 4 areas of ADHD, and then start to introduce how we can support children and young people in those areas. We'll look at lots of practical things. There'll be stuff that I'll be passing around as we do that, and then I'll signpost us towards some further resources, and then hopefully there'll be time at the end for any final questions that everybody's got. Does that look okay? Because the only other thing I've brought with me is an all-day rocking study of the physical law in Hebrew. 1 or 2 people nodding actually. Let's jump on in to this. More things to hand around. I'll talk about fidget boxes or fiddle boxes later, but I'm going to send mine on its way so that you can have a bit of a rummage and borrow something to fidget or fiddle with as we go through our session. So I'm afraid you're going to end up being the person that starts off with all these things as they go. You get first choice. But there we are. So, a little bit about what ADHD is and isn't. So, yeah, various things here. All of these are in your books. So, if you need to sort of scribble things down, there's all the slides in your workbooks, and you can make notes by the side of them. So, what is ADHD? Well, first up, difficulty regulating attention. sometimes a shorter attention span. You might have noticed that in the children and young people that you're journeying with that have ADHD. Reduced ability to concentrate and to pay attention to other people. Easily distracted and easily losing focus and spotting other things that take away that focus from them. But whilst they can be easily distracted and sometimes lack focus, they can also, on the flip side of that, have hyper-focus as well. They can have things that they are passionately interested in and fixated on. So you may be aware of, with the child or young person that you're journeying with, what their particular interest area might be, what they're hyper-fixated on and focused on, because they often will have one or more of those areas that they want to talk with you about in depth all the time. And so obviously that presents us with opportunities, doesn't it? Because if we are understanding what their hyper-focus is, then that gives us a gateway into their world and helps us to be able to engage with them better. Some of them might sleep too much, some of them don't sleep enough. And of course both of those can have an impact on them in all sorts of ways. If they don't sleep enough, they're tired, and that can affect their focus as well. If they sleep too much, even sleeping too much can create sort of adverse sort of physical and emotional and mental responses too. So getting that balance right is hard for them. You get the nice workbook. Well done.
Thank you very much.
So that's worth bearing in mind. And it says everything can be all or nothing, fully focused, but forgetting everything else. Again, that's linking back to that hyper-focus that we've been looking at already. That also leads to difficulties being organised or following instructions, because if you're hyper-focused on something, you're not really listening to what somebody's saying and the instructions that you're receiving, because you're hyper-focused or thinking in a hyper-focused way about something else. And so that's linking into this as well. Lots of this is too much or too little. Too much or too little. And same with being overstimulated or understimulated. And finding it hard to regulate their senses. Any of you come into my session this afternoon on making sense of your senses? Yeah, one or two of you coming to that. So we're going to explore that a little bit more then. But yeah, sometimes children with ADHD and with a range of other different additional needs as well can be overstimulated, can have too much information coming in at any one time. All the sounds, all the things they see, all the smells, everything, all arriving at once, and being able to process that and make sense of that can be really hard for them. Or they can be understimulated and maybe they're hyper-focused on something, so everything else just gets shut out. And from one day to the next, from 1 hour to the next, from one moment to the next, that can change. So you might think, okay, they're overstimulated at the moment, that might be now, but in 5 minutes' time, that might have changed. It can switch from one to the other. There's this thing called dopamine, this chemical that gives feelings of motivation, pleasure, satisfaction. They can lack that. And so they can go searching for those things that give them motivation, pleasure and satisfaction. Maybe not find them as well, and so there can be mood swings that can happen as a consequence of that too. So that's a real quick whistle-stop tour through. But there's a lot there, isn't there? And I guess the summary of it is kids with ADHD are complex. And what we see sometimes when we just see somebody running around a lot, or not being able to focus, or not being able to understand the instructions that they're receiving, there's all this going on in the background that is perhaps, once we understand that a bit better, we can understand it's not them responding in a behavioural way that's coming from them being naughty or disobedient or whatever. It's actually all of this going on all of the time, and them trying to balance it all. And that's not always easy for them. How many children have ADHD? Well, that's a tough question to answer as well. Loads of different studies out there, they all come up with different results. They seem to land somewhere between 5% of children and 10% of children. So it's still a big number. That's still a lot of children and young people. If we're thinking, 10% of children is 1.3 million in the UK, so that's a lot. And we're seeing that there's actually an increase in awareness and understanding and diagnosis, which is just altering that figure all the time. But yeah, somewhere between 5% to 10%. That might be what you experience in your children's and youth work. You might see more than that, but that's the sort of research at the moment. At the moment, the research says that 4 times as many boys have ADHD than girls. We know that's not actually the reality, but girls are better at masking their differences, at mimicking their peers. They often slip through the net and don't get spotted, whereas boys can be a little bit more visible in the way that they respond to being a child with ADHD. So, and that's true of all areas of neurodiversity, whether that's autism or dyslexia or lots of other areas too. We know that there are lots more girls than we're spotting, and that's improving, but there are still girls that struggle because they've not been identified as having ADHD and don't get the support they need. Really, this is, as I said earlier, it's neurodiversity, it's not a behavioural issue, so all those negative labels about challenging behaviour and uncooperative or poor parenting sometimes that get thrown into this, they're not the truth of what's going on here. It's children and young people often struggling with, in a neurotypical world, being neurodiverse, or neurodivergent rather. That's what's really happening. And lots of different areas of neurodiversity. I've got some up on the screen here: autism, dyslexia, Tourette's, OCD, and of course ADHD. Probably worth scribbling down the web link that's up here if you can't see it at the back. www.howtoadhd.com. howtoadhd.com. It's a brilliant website packed with content created by a young woman who has ADHD herself and shares what's about it and her journey as she goes. So, okay, lots of different things that we've been exploring already, but we're now going to start to focus in a little bit on how ADHD particularly influences children and young people, and then we can start to understand how we can support them a little bit better. So we're going to look at these 4 core areas, which are hyperactivity, attention, concentration, and organisation. And we're going to look at each of those separately and get a better understanding of them, what that means, and how to support a child or young person in that area. There's a brilliant mind map that Twinkle have produced, and we're going to use some of that. I don't know if any of you use Twinkle or subscribe to their services, but there's a brilliant mind map here, which I know it's quite small for those of you at the back. You've got a copy of it in your workbooks as well, and we're going to dip into that in just a few moments to just pick out those 4 core areas and start to understand them a bit better. But before we do that, it's time for that video that I mentioned. So, we'll stick it up on the screen. There'll be some audio coming from my laptop. There are captions on the screen as well, so hopefully in one way or the other you'll be able to hear or see what the young people are saying. But it's a really, really good little video clip, and so we're going to give it a go. Okay, let's see how we do.
Hi, we all have ADHD, and we're going to tell you a bit about it. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder.
Did you know that anyone can have ADHD, even adults? About 1 in 20 children have ADHD, which is more than 1 in every class. Someone in your family may even have it too.
If you have ADHD, you might feel like you have a lot more energy than others, find it hard to pay attention, get distracted easily, find it hard to sit still, or not sure how to interrupt others.
Lots of people feel like this sometimes, but for someone with ADHD, it might feel like this most of all of
everyone with ADHD has the same difficulties. ADHD can appear in different ways at different times for different people. That's why sometimes it's hard to tell who has it.
Some people may also have difficulties with reading, spelling, or being clumsy. Some may have difficulties communicating with people who have bigger emotions than others, like feeling more worried, sad, or angry.
Scientists have found that the brains of people with ADHD can work in a special way, including parts of the brain that help with things like attention, stopping and waiting before doing things, and organising thoughts or actions.
For me, ADHD feels like you are watching TV, listening to music, and talking to someone all at the same time. It's really hard to know what to pay attention to.
A special doctor can tell if you have ADHD. They will speak to you, your family, and your teachers to find out more about you and think very carefully before deciding if somebody has ADHD or not. They will also talk about the type of happiness you take.
Knowing that you have ADHD can help you and others understand you better. You might need help with things that you find hard, and that's okay. It's important to find out what these are and talk to your family, teacher, or doctor about it.
There are some things that you might be able to do to help yourself with support of your family and teachers. For example, taking breaks or having a chart of what you need to do can help some people. Eating well, trying to get a good night's sleep, and getting regular exercise is important too.
Some children with ADHD need medicine to help with their difficulties, and some do not. Not everything works for everyone, and nothing works all the time. So it's best to find things that suit you and that you enjoy too.
Scientists don't know what exactly causes ADHD yet, but they know that it's complicated, with lots of different things acting together, including genes, which are instruction manuals in our bodies that help make us who we are, and the environment, which are the different things that happen to us in our lives.
Although it can be hard sometimes, there are some good things about ADHD. It doesn't stop people from achieving their dreams and being successful. Lots of famous people, like some athletes and actors, have ADHD too. In fact,
ADHD helps me have amazing ideas.
I'm one of the funniest kids in school. I have lots more energy than others.
I have fun in everything I do. I can think of more questions to ask teachers than any of the present in my class.
ADHD is just one part of who you are, and it's okay to have ADHD.
Find out more about ADHD by going to ncnh.info/ADHD.
Hopefully you managed to hear or see what those kids were saying. Great, wasn't it? Really good to hear from them. I'm glad we managed to capture that. Okay, so let's. I'm going to quickly move on to the 4 core areas, really. I think that's what we need to focus on. So we're going to start off thinking about hyperactivity as the first of those 4 core areas that we're going to think about. What we're going to then do is think about ways that we can support children or young people that might feel that hyperactivity can sometimes be overwhelming them a little bit. I've sent my fidget box around. Hopefully it's navigated its way around the room. Everybody's fidgeting or fiddling with something. Several things to mention about fidget or fiddle boxes. First of all, they're a really useful thing to add to our kit list as children's, youth or families workers generally. They've been helpful to have around. They're particularly useful for children or young people who either need to wake their senses up or who need to calm their senses down. And that's a neat introduction to the principle that there are 2 kinds of fidgets. It's really important that we understand the 2 kinds of fidgets and understand how to use them. So there are sensory calming fidgets and sensory stimulating fidgets. Now, an example of a sensory calming fidget is the glitter wand. If you could hold that up for me, that'd be brilliant. That's really quite calming to look at, isn't it? You know, when you look at that, you feel calm pretty quickly. A soft toy, one of those dance scarves that you can wrap around your hand, that's quite nice to feel. Some Play-Doh that you can squeeze, things like that. are really good at being sensory calming fidgets for us to use. Sensory stimulating fidgets can be things like, the finger spinner there. If you could hold that up for us, please. Give it a spin. Yeah. Has anybody got the fidget cube? Anybody use it? Yeah, the fidget cube. Anything that lights up or clicks. Anybody got one of those sensory slugs or caterpillars? Anybody grab one of those? Things like that that make a sound or that light up or that click or spin, those sorts of things are sensory stimulating fidgets. And they're good at waking our senses up and helping us to sort of reactivate. Now clearly it's quite important that we get this the right way round, because if we've got a child or a young person who is overstimulated, who's a bit hyperactive and that needs to calm their senses down a bit, if we give them a stimulating fidget, that's going to make that even worse for them. So we need to give them something calming. But if we've got a child or a young person who's quite sort of lethargic, they're finding it hard to focus and concentrate, they're just really not able to sort of connect, giving them something that has some response, like a finger spinner or a fidget cube or something that lights up or something like that, will wake their senses up. You don't want to give them something calming, otherwise they'll go to sleep. Something that wakes their senses up can really help. One last thing to say about fidget boxes is that stick with them. The first time that you bring a fidget box into your children's work or youth work, it will be a distraction. They'll all want to have a go and they'll be getting everything out and playing with it all, and you won't be able to do much teaching during that time. But stick with it. The novelty value sort of wears off after a couple of 3 goes, and then they're really useful for everybody that wants to have a go. Also, make them available to everybody. Not just children with additional needs, but actually make them available for everybody to use. Because on any given day, somebody might have been up all last night playing Fortnite, they've not slept very well, they've not had breakfast, mum and dad were having a row before they came out, and they've got all sorts of stuff that's going on in their life. They may not have any diagnosed additional needs, but right now they need something to fidget with. And so making it available to everybody really helps. Sometimes having things that they can use to sort of work through some of that energy that they've got can be helpful too. So things like a wobble cushion. I'll send my wobble cushion round from the front, and perhaps I'll pass my balance board around a bit further back. Or you could use a gym ball or something like that, just something they can use. Wobble cushions are my favourite. When the wobble cushion comes, if you fancy having a go, then sit on it, and you can wriggle and move, you don't fall off your chair or rock your chair over or anything like that. So for a child or young person who really has that need to move around in their chair, then do that. The balance board is more something to stand on rather than sit on. So the one at the back there, generally people stand on it, but it's quite tricky, so be careful if you do give it a go. But these are great resources, particularly the wobble cushion, to help a child or young person that's got all that sort of pent up energy that they need to move and get that movement into it. They can use something like that. And like I say, gym ball's another option that you can use there. Giving them a sensory break, particularly before you're going to be getting them to sit down and perhaps do some work. If you're going to get them to work on something for a few minutes, or you want them to listen to you, then give them a sensory break. Give them some physical activity to do first. Could just be a bit of a walk, could be doing some stretches or some star jumps or something. Could be giving them some therapy or something that's really quite hard work to squeeze, but giving them something physical to do can help to regulate their senses before they then have to think about something. So that's really helpful. But also give them a time-out space. So if they are feeling overwhelmed, if they do need just some space to regulate their senses again, then a space that perhaps has got some bean bags and some blankets, and there's a little dark den they can crawl into there. Just maybe some fidgets, some ear defenders if they want to shut everything out for a bit, just so that they can have a space that, excuse me, theirs to go to, that they can use just to help regulate their senses again if they need to. So those are some things that we can do to help a little bit with some of the hyperactivity. We can give them some things to focus on and to use their energy up a bit and to help them with that. We're now going to move on to attention. And so thinking about how to help children and young people with ADHD that might struggle with their attention. The little mind map there says things like can't complete tasks even when motivated, doesn't pay attention to schoolwork, doesn't appear to be listening when spoken to. Interesting word, appear to be listening. Often they are listening. And that's a really important thing. With children with all kinds of different areas of neurodiversity, sometimes people say, oh, but they don't look at me, when I'm talking to. And there's that thing still, isn't it, that you've got to give eye contact to somebody when you're listening to them. Often children with ADHD or who are autistic or with other areas of additional need too, in order to be able to listen to you, need to focus somewhere else, because looking at you and focusing on you can take up everything, and then they can't hear you. So actually, if they're staring into the distance, that's their mechanism to be able to then hear what you're saying. So that's a really important thing for us to be aware of.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just add into that one? I work with youths, with young people, and the issue for them is not looking at you, it's hearing you.
Yeah.
And so they will put their hoods up.
Yeah.
So, and it almost works like sound defenders.
Yes.
But a lot of people look at that and think, oh, use with the hood up kind of thing. But no, that is them blocking out all this what's going on so that they can concentrate.
Yeah.
And we call them the hoodie twins because there's two of them and they constantly have their hoods up because it's just, there's too much sound going on around.
And what happens is that all that sound all around them arrives at once. If we were having a conversation, like if all of you were having a conversation with the person next to you, you'd be able to do that. You'd be able to sort of tone out everything else and just listen to the person that was next to you. But a child or young person with ADHD, autistic child, and other areas too, will struggle with that. All that sound comes in together, and it's really hard to separate all of that out. So that's why, that can be a challenge. Give more time to complete tasks. Our friend, the Sand Timer. You've seen Sand Timers, but I'll send it around anyway. That's a 5-minute one. How are we doing for time? We're okay. Half an hour left. So, more time to complete tasks, but let them know what that time is, so that they've got that visual prompt, like a Sand Timer, to know that actually, we're going to have 5 more minutes to do this task. We're going to turn the Sand Timer over. That gives you a visual prompt that in 5 minutes we're going to be moving on. Because if I said to you, in 5 minutes we're going to move on to the next thing, and it might well be 5 minutes later when we move on to the next thing, and I say, right, our 5 minutes are up. No, that's not 5 minutes, it's not fair, that's not 5 minutes. But the Sand Timer never lies. So using digital countdown timer on a screen, all sorts of things that are available. Something like that can really help and to give that focus that actually, that's when we're going to be moving on to do the next thing. Give plenty of praise. So often, children and young people with additional needs generally, but particularly with some of the more hidden areas of additional need, like ADHD, like autism, lots of negativity can follow them around. Wind back to what we were talking about earlier, where they can often be misunderstood as being naughty and badly behaved and challenging behaviour and all that sort of thing. Lots of that can follow them around. So actually giving praise when they're doing really well, when they've done something amazing, or even just something small but significant, then let's give lots of praise. Shout out to my lad James here, who's getting some praise from one of the team community thing he goes to. He's just done a picture of a chameleon, which he did brilliantly. James doesn't have ADHD, but he is autistic, has learning difficulties and various other additional needs too. But I've got to get him in there somewhere. So yeah, give lots of praise. That affirmation can be so important. It can just boost self-esteem, but it can also help with relationship building. And then when a child or young person is really struggling, they'll go to somebody they trust and that they feel they've got a good relationship with them. Perhaps that might be us if we've given them plenty of praise. So let's do that. Use what they enjoy doing to help them learn. Now, in our work as involved in Christian children's and youth work, that can be all sorts of things. James again doing jigsaws as a young man. I don't know why it says gussaws. I think it's just cut off that bit of the slide, but there we are. So it could be things like Lego. Lego is really popular with kids with ADHD who are autistic as well. Of course, there's our friend the Brick Bible. So let me send the Brick Bibles round. Let me also send my Bible for Minecrafters round. Minecraft's very popular as well. Brick Bible. Make sure you have a look. We are aware, aren't we, that the Bible is packed full of violence. There's a lot of violence going on in the Bible, right the way through, Old and New Testament. And the Brick Bibles can portray that quite graphically. There are videos, and if you check out some of the videos, then they can also be quite graphic in more ways than one. Legend goes that the church leader who was preparing an all-age service for that coming Sunday found a Brick Bible video. Oh, brilliant! Yeah, watch the first half of it, and said, we'll use that on Sunday. Only watching the second half of it live with his congregation that Sunday morning, and it ended with, if you remember that Old Testament story with Jael, with the tent peg and the mallet, the brains, the gore, the kids loved it. But I think the church leader and half his congregation are still in therapy. But yeah, Lego can be great. Lego is consistent, isn't it? It always goes together the same way. That's helpful. There's a couple of little examples. I won't get you to try and guess what they are because it's quite small on the screen. But the top picture made out of Lego is actually the Temple of Jerusalem, made by some kids with ADHD and who are autistic. And in their particular version of the Temple of Jerusalem, the high priest is played by Darth Vader. So there's a little bit of theology to work through there, but yeah. And the bottom one is that's Abraham and Isaac up the mountain where Isaac's going to be sacrificed. But thankfully, the ram in the background there is caught in the thicket and takes Isaac's place. Abraham played by Mr. Wu, Isaac by Luke Skywalker. But they were using what they enjoy doing to help them learn. Minecraft. There's loads of kids with ADHD that love the world of Minecraft. Again, there's a consistency to it. It works the same way. There's a YouTube channel called Pixel Heart Bible, Pixel Heart Bible. And there's loads of videos there of Bible stories recreated within Minecraft. My unofficial Bible for Minecrafters is coming around as well, which is a great resource to use too. Pixel Heart Bible, one of the videos they've got is the Easter story. So with Easter coming up in a few weeks' time, have a look at that and see if that's something that might be useful to use as well. A great way of finding out what they enjoy doing is to use one-page profiles. And so I'm going to pass some of these around quickly so that you can have a look. So there's a website called Chef Kids. I can pass some of those around.
Twinkle. You can get these on Twinkle as well.
You can get them on Twinkle. There's another one to go around. But you can also get them free on the Chef Kids website. We're in Sheffield. Sheffield City Council's children's team have got a website called chefkids.co.uk. chefkids.co.uk/resources gives you access to dozens of designs of one-page profiles that you can download for free. So a great shout out to Sheffield City Council's children's team for putting that resource together.
So what, could you just repeat that website?
So SheffKids, sheffkids.co.uk, and if you do /resources, it will take you straight to where all the one-page profiles are. And they ask these questions: what do people like and admire about you? Again, that's that affirming, positive start to things. Yeah.
And then you're probably going to ask questions at the end, but I will forget.
Go for it.
So we were just being a bit rude and saying we should do this for all the kids in the group, as opposed to just those with additional needs. And I want my question maybe for later is I've got a relatively small group at the moment, maybe 12, maybe 15 kids, and so I run it as a very much all together session. So how would some of your tips or work when you're doing stuff all together? So you said about extra time, or you said about like the sensory space. If I had that set up and they all decided to go and explore there, then would that kind of defeat the purpose of what it's set up for?
Not necessarily, as long as it's being used as a calm space. Follow them, sit there and chat with them there, and carry on what you're doing there. Much of what we're talking about, including things like the countdown times and all that sort of stuff, actually makes what we do better for every child and young person. It works across all of them. Just happens to work particularly well.
Because when I've got out fidget toys, so I've got a few dinosaurs in there and stuff, which maybe I should take out. Some of the kids who haven't got additional needs end up then just playing with dinosaurs instead of listening to what I'm talking to them.
So that's where the one-page profiles can be really helpful, because the next thing is what makes me happy. We've just been looking a little bit at that with Lego and with Minecraft. If we know what they really enjoy doing, we might be able to bring some of that into what we do in our children's work too. And if we're bringing that in and they're seeing, hey, that's that thing I really enjoy and like doing, they're less likely to be distracted with other things, because actually, hey, I'm doing the thing I love doing. It's Lego or whatever it is. So do these things with all the children and young people. Always be flexible. So if you've got things that just continually a distraction, then you might need to swap those out for something else. And if there are things that are really popular and everybody wants to digital, to make sure you've got enough of those. So a little bit of flexibility goes a long way with that too. But yeah, a lot of these strategies work well across our children's work. So do try it out across all of them, and particularly the one-page profiles. Using these with every child and young person gets you to know more about all of them.
Especially if you've got a large group of volunteers, I imagine.
Yeah, well, depending on how many volunteers you've got, you can again, you have to flex it, don't you? If you've only got a tiny team, then you've got to work with what you've got. But if you're, even with a tiny team, if you know what the kids really love doing and you're including some of that in the session, they're more likely to stay focused with that because it's the stuff they enjoy. They tend to get more distracted and looking for other things to do if in that particular moment they're a bit bored or they're not really focused because it's not something they're interested in. But if we're trying to use the things they enjoy doing to help them learn, we're likely to be more successful with that, even with a small group and a little team. And then how I want to be supported? What a great question that is to ask. And really helpful responses. Often when we get forms for families to fill in, we might ask them if their children have any additional needs or special needs or anything like that. Sometimes those can be left blank, even though we suspect that the child may well have some additional needs. There are all kinds of reasons for that. There can be feelings that families are worried about sharing that information because their child might get excluded or treated badly, or all sorts of things. But actually asking them how I want to be supported, giving them that first, their voice into that can really help us to understand better ways to support them. It's a very neutral question to ask, but it can lead to more great conversations afterwards if we ask that question. So do use one-page profiles, use them with everybody, and there's loads you can freely download from the SheffKids website. Concentration is our third area of additional needs. Are we still concentrating? Yes. Are we still concentrating? Are we doing okay? Are our mood octopuses still smiling? It's arrived at the back here. How's it doing? It's grumpy. Oh no. I'm going to turn it back. I hope it's still smiling. I hope you're all still smiling. Okay, concentration. So the things we're going to look at here, don't give too many instructions at one time. Take it step by step and use clear language. Break tasks up into bite-sized chunks. Check they've heard and understand what you're saying. And then signpost changes in advance. Really, really important one there too. So let's unpack some of those. Organisation, structure. A little bit of structure can go a long way. If they know what the structure is, if they know that actually we run our session in this way, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this, then that can really help. Breaking things down into step-by-step instructions. So don't give them a whole list of things to do. Give them the first bit. And when they've done that, give them the next bit, and then the next bit, so that they've just got one thing to focus on at a time. Because if you give them,
if you're doing a craft, make it with them.
Yeah. If
so do the step by step with them. Show them. So
show them is better than tell them, and then they can copy what you're doing.
And has everybody done that bit?
Yeah.
Is my favourite phrase.
Exactly. and then you help the ones that haven't to finish, and then you move on to the next bit. Use a visual timetable. Is my next slide got? No, my next slide hasn't got a visual timetable, so I will send some examples of visual timetables around. These are visual timetables that we use with my lad James, but do have a go. Visual timetable.
Thank you.
At that, and I will also send round my Now Next board pack. So have a play with that. So the Now Next board, if I can just very quickly borrow that bit. Now Next board, now and next. Really simple. And when you've done what's now, take now off and put it back in the box. Move next to now, and then put what's next. And it's really easy to follow. So Now Next board. Visual timetable, this is a more complex one. This is one we use with James. A bit of Velcro with James's picture on, and he moves it down as we go through the session. Sometimes we'd get to church and James would move his picture straight down to snack time. He likes snack time, but we'd have to say no, it's snack time later, circle time first. And he'd mournfully accept that, knowing that snack time is still coming, so it will be okay, that will happen. Yeah.
Well, like thinking about visual timetables and things, have you got any tips on how you navigate if those things then, if for whatever reason, that the initial plan then has to change?
Yes, so actually on the original version of this, rather than the version I just bring around for things like this, the actual schedule was also on Velcro. So sometimes we have to swap something around, but actually we could then show James that actually, we're going to have snack time earlier. That's good. Yeah. But then we're going to have story time afterwards. And then we could swap those around. James would understand that. He could see that was a new running order. We try and keep to it as much as we possibly could. Yeah. But inevitably things can change. But graphically showing him that change before we got there was much better than him suddenly thinking that there's one thing going to happen, and then actually there's something else. So whether it's the Now Next boards, whether it's a visual timetable like this, if they use symbols in other areas of their life, like at school and at home, use the same symbols there at church as well. But otherwise, there's Widget, there's Boardmaker, there's Makaton symbols, lots of different places that you can get symbols to use as well. But use visual timetables to help with that. Step-by-step instructions, I've got some step-by-step instructions. They're more sort of home ones to do with daily routines for kids in the morning and at bedtime, but it gives you the sort of idea. I think I've only got 3 of these, so that will have to find its way around at the back as well. And we've got another copy of that. No. So hopefully that can find its way around the back row too. But using those step-by-step instructions, even giving them something they can tick when they've done the first bit, and can then go on to the next bit. That can help as well.
I've done that with the whole group, just to sort of establish routine.
Yeah, that can, like we were saying earlier, there's nothing here that we're talking about this morning that doesn't make our children's work and youth work better for everybody. So all of these things we can use across the board to just work even better for kids with ADHD and stuff. Social stories coming around. So the social story that I'm sending around to you is slightly different to the one that's on the screen, which I need to clock. But the one that's coming round is quite a good one. And the one that's coming round is about going to a children's club for the first time. And so understanding what's happening at children's club can really, really help. That's the one that's coming round. I think it's a better one for you to get an idea about social stories from. You can get loads of information about social stories, which are using a combination of images, symbols, text, all sorts of things like that, together to explain something new or explain something different and complex for a child or a young person. The social story that's coming around is about Joy Club at church and about what happens at Joy Club, who they'll meet, what they'll do, all the different things that happen at Joy Club. So it's a great way of being able to give them that information before they come so that they know what to expect. They've had time to process it and to prepare themselves ready for what they're going to see and do when they get to Joy Club. So again, have a look at that. If you want to know more about social stories and creating them and examples of them, reachout.asc.com. So reachout, asc.com. reachout.asc.com. My friend Lynn McCann that runs training across the Northwest for schools and churches is a genius at putting these together, and the example you will see coming around is one of hers, so do have a look at what she's offering there too. Talked about visual timetables, so let's go on to our takeaways. So we've looked at lots of different areas of ADHD in what we've just been exploring. Learning from the children with ADHD and letting them be our guides is really important. Remember that video from those children and the things that they've been sharing with us. Work with them to identify the triggers that they might identify, things that are barriers for them at church, or talk to their families. What do they struggle with? Let's be willing to listen to them and to hear from them. Hyperactivity. We've looked at hyperactivity, haven't we? Using fidgets. Our wobble cushion. Is our wobble cushion being used anywhere? No, it's gone round. Hands up if you had a go on the wobble cushion. Brilliant, loads of you did, that's great. Did you find that it was actually quite good to sit on that and wobble a little bit? Yeah. Balance boards, the different things there. Sensory activity breaks or timeouts, really, really helpful. Then we looked at attention, giving more time. We used our sound timer for that. Plenty of praise, and use what they enjoy doing to help them to learn. Really important to remember that. We looked at concentration, that third area of ADHD. Using one instruction at a time, going one step at a time, bite-sized chunks, checking that understanding. We had the example from the person at the back there that was saying, with the craft, do it with them and check that they've finished and that everybody's on the same page. And then, just continue to do that as we go through. And then organisation, give structure. Make sure you're using things like a visual timetable to help them to know what's happening now, what's happening next, and when their favourite bit's going to come. If it's snack time, something like that, then that's really, really important. So there's lots there, isn't there? But before I... Oh, sorry, yes.
No, I was just going to say, going back to this social story, is it worth sort of having a time where they just get to look around without all the other children there as well?
Yeah, that can help too.
To sort of familiarise themselves with the building that you're using.
If they come into a new place, it's always great if they can get a little bit of time in that space first. Same thing if they're going away on a residential trip somewhere. If it's possible to do a bit of an advanced visit Now, it may not always be possible, but if it's not possible, another option might be to get somebody to do a bit of a video walk round. It's not as good as going there in person, but it is better than nothing. And they can have a look at a bit of a video walk round, so they know where everything is, they know what it all looks like, how it all fits together, what they'll be doing when they get there. So, yeah, a visit or a video walk round can be really helpful with that. We've had a whiz through thinking about ADHD. I've got a couple more things to share with you resource-wise, and then we'll have hopefully a couple of minutes left for questions at the end. But are we doing okay so far? Lots of stuff to take on board there, wasn't it? I hope that all focus and concentration and attention, all those things were happening, because it was a bit hyperactive at times. so there's lots going on there that's helped us. Hopefully it was organised enough for you to be able to work through it all with me there. There are some really good websites. I'm just going to share perhaps 3 with you, but it's worth you just being aware of. They are all in your workbooks, so you should see them. What page is that? Page 14. So you don't have to scribble them all down, they're all there for you. The ADHD Foundation, it is the UK's leading national neurodiversity charity. Lots of service that they offer across the age ranges. So this isn't just for children and young people, this is for adults as well. And so it's a great place to perhaps signpost families, but also signpost adults that you might be journeying with that can find some useful support there as well. There's contact for families with disabled children, and they've got information there about ADHD too. So there's a whole debate about whether ADHD is a disability or a neurodiversity, or some people may see it as both. We're not going to have that debate today, we've only got 5 minutes left. But that's a whole session all on its own. However, nevertheless, there's some really helpful information on the Contact for Families website, so do have a look at that as well. And Young Minds, again, there's a whole bunch of information there which is specifically helpful for thinking about children and young people that might also have sometimes co-related mental health conditions that they're journeying with as well. So it's not, neurodivergent young people are disproportionately more likely to also be journeying with mental health issues of some kind, diagnosed or undiagnosed. So signposting young people or families of children towards Young Minds could be really, really helpful as well. Phew. So, we've got about 4 minutes left for questions.
It's almost like a daft question, but where you had about checking a person's understanding, I wonder if you had any advice on ways to do, like sometimes if someone's either very withdrawn or very hyper, like techniques on how to check.
There's lots of things we can do. Hurry, digging in my box. Depending on every child and young person is going to be different.
Yes.
The best thing would actually be to chat with them or with their family about the best way to do that. So starting there, but it could be that even just some flashcards, like these are from Stickman. So you can have flashcards that they could have, and this one says, "I'm okay with this." So you could ask how they're doing, and they could show a card that says, "I'm okay with this," or "This is a bit much," or "I can't cope," or something. So yeah.
So I've done the thumbs up thing, but I'm aware some people do that when they don't necessarily. But I suppose if they've got that choice.
Mean that. Yeah. So Stickman Communications.co.uk.
Yeah. So instead of just being thumbs up, like I'm good, I'm not work, I'm in the middle.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
But sometimes finding that middle option gives them the I don't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, there's that sort of, like here we've got green, sort of orange, amber and red. Having those three options are good. But yeah, this is stickmancommunications.co.uk is the website for those. Yes.
Do you do full days of training?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Come and see me on the stand to chat about it. Do training.
Let me know if you get them.
I think somewhere in like the second page in or something, there's all my contact details, so you can get in touch. And I do days, like a day training or an evening or half day or whatever you need. Do be in touch.
Could I just ask as well, because on your slide it says the church invested on it, but are you locating, do you work in schools?
Yeah, I do school training. I did a whole training day for Grace Academy Foundation across the Midlands just the other week, which is great for a whole bunch of their team. So work with schools, beautiful organisations, all sorts of different places. How are we doing? Probably one more question. Are we done? We're done. Did our inner Methodists smile? We did. Was that a helpful session for you? Brilliant. I'm thrilled and I'm grateful, more than you could know, because that was the first time running through that content with an actual audience. So, that's great to be able to do that, so thank you. And enjoy the rest of the conference. We've got a quick 5-minute changeover now to the next one. So if all my stuff that went out there somewhere, find its way back.